Now I don't know about you, but whenever I read a card that either destroys a monster for cost, or a card that gets good effects when it's destroyed, I always think, would this be good in Unchained? They're hardly the first deck to have destroying their own monsters as a gimmick, and they likely won't be the last, but they're probably the most relevant one at the moment, so that's where my mind always goes to. Now, if you've still never encountered the Unchained deck, it's pretty simple. You blow up your own cards to summon monsters from the deck, only to make a link monster that can link your opponents away as a quick effect. You usually have a pretty simple end board, but since it's a fairly compact engine, it can work quite well with other decks like Evil Eye or Live Twins. The problem? Well, when you actually use their effects, they lock you into Fiends for the rest of the turn. And the thing is, Fiends don't actually have the best extra deck options. I mean sure, they have the Nightmares as a toolbox, but they're kind of lacking that big boss monster or something full of negates. So often something will come along that does destroy for cost, but because of that luck, it won't actually be very good in Unchained. So that's why I've been keeping track of all these little pieces of support that could work well with Unchained over these last few sets, and there have actually been a few. The first one is Ecole de Zone, a field spell from that weird duel in 5Ds where everyone is just, well, pretty confused. While it doesn't actually make you fight mirror versions of you and your friends, it does destroy the first thing each player summons each turn, and replaces it by a token with the same stats. Now while that's mostly just a slight annoyance for your opponent, you're not actually playing it for that reason. Instead, it turns your small Unchained monsters, not named Aruha, into actual starters for the deck, so no more needing to rely on other stuff to get your combos started. With this card they can all do it. So basically it's a consistency card that can occasionally mess with your opponent as well. Since they don't have an in-archetype field spell, this is an easy fit for the deck. But that's old news, and Battle of Chaos brought newer support too. That card is Clear New World. No relation to Small World, although we will be running that too, and you'll see why soon. Also no relation to the Clear World stuff from the last season of GX, including the Clear World field spell. Sorry to anyone who was hoping they'd actually import those from the anime one day, but never lose hope. A Battle of Legends set will need some pack filler one day. Anyway, Clear New World does have a few similarities to Small World, in the sense that they're both cards that let you search any monster. Or in this case, summon anything that's allowed to be special summoned. It works by destroying a monster on the field, and then you can summon anything from your deck that's a lower level, and a different type and attribute. Oh, and its effects are negated too. Seems like a steep cost, right? Well, that's why you use it on something that will float when it's destroyed, and or something that will have an effect in the graveyard. Now, you already probably know that everything in the Unchained deck floats on destruction, so you'll essentially get 2 monsters for the price of 1. But that doesn't quite seem interesting enough to make a deck profile about, does it? That's why we need more spice. Enter Baobaboon, an ugly as hell monster from 2017. It has 2 effects, and both aren't hard ones per turns, which is why they might be interesting. The first one is that, when summoned, it draws you a card and then shuffles another one back from your hand. So basically it lets you fix your hand up a bit. The second effect, and the one that we're using Clear New World for, is this. When destroyed, it can summon as many Baobaboons from the deck as possible. So to recap, if you use Clear New World on this, you get to draw 3 and then put 3 back, while getting 2 more Baobaboons from your deck, as well as whatever you summon from the spell. Not too bad, right? So what do you summon? Well, in the interest of not running a bunch of tricks that are only relevant in one situation, the thing that you'll usually summon is Effect Failure. Why? Well, drawing it isn't really ever a bad thing, so it's basically something that you could just be running anyway. Secondly, it's a tuner. This, along with any low-level Unchained, makes a Herald of the Arclight for a negate. And with the level 8 Unchained monsters, you can easily make a Shen Shen. Your destruction effects are way more powerful if they result in banishes too, after all. Thirdly, it's an instant access code talker when going second thanks to the Hulk Celine combo, and if that gets interrupted, you've probably fixed your hand to the point where you should be able to go straight into your regular Unchained combo without much problems. Of course, this card also works well with Ecole de Zone, giving you 2 monsters and a token off of your normal summon, as well as fixing your hand right up. This makes for some easy link plays like Dagda or IP Masquerena, while also making the Unchained part of the deck less bricky. Oh yeah, and you know that the mask token you get from Ecole de Zone is a spellcaster? Well, you can go straight into Selene thanks to the 2 Baobaboons you'll summon off of Ecole's effect, so if there's enough spells in the graveyard, that's an abomination before you even start using a single Unchained card. Also, you know what else is really nice about Baobaboon? Well, it's a small world bridge, sharing the level but basically nothing else was Aruha, so you can easily bridge the small world gaps thanks to this and pretty much everything else in the deck. The opposite is also true if you want to search Baobaboon, so basically it's a simple Unchained deck, but quite a lot more consistent, as well as one with the possibility of making a few more combo plays before locking you into Fiends. Have a look at the deck yourself and you'll see. So here it is, an Unchained deck with some funky tech. To start with the Unchained cards, we run 3 of all the low level ones. Between Ecole de Zone and Clear New World, they're all starters, or at worst, small world bridges for Aruha, the one that's actually good. We then run only one of each level 8 Unchained, since you never really want to draw them, but they each have a niche application. You also need 2 in case you want to go into Shen and still make an Unchained Soul monster that same turn. We then run 3 Prison, since it searches any other Unchained card. Don't forget that it isn't an Unchained card itself, so it won't work with Sarama. Finally, run 3 of each Trap, since you want to have at least one to destroy with Aruha. If you have Chamber, make sure to get Abominable Unchained Soul in the graveyard so that it can destroy something when it's revived. Now for the funky stuff. 3 Baobaboon, since it's kinda the basis for this deck, and then 1 Scythe since we can search it and then destroy it pretty easily. You run 3 Clear New World for everything it offers, along with 3 Ecole de Zones for the same reason. Small World makes the deck way more consistent, since pretty much everything can search either Baobaboon or Aruha, the 2 cards you'll want to get to the most. Finally, 3 Ash, 2 Veiler and 2 Ogre, as a mix of hand traps, small world bridges, and Clear New World summons. For their extra deck, it's a bit more interesting than your usual Unchained extra deck. We run 2 Synchros for a start, Shen and Arclight. Shen is a bit riskier to make since you'll lose out on some recovery if you make it too soon, but it can shut down certain decks fairly well. Arclight can be made before you even start using Unchained monsters, so it protects your plays quite well. We then run 2 of each Unchained extra deck monster since, well, they're the easiest for you to make. We then run an IP and a Unicorn for their combo, but also because Unicorn can be a good target for Soul of Rage to link into. Next there's Access Code to try an ATK, and Appaloosa because it can come up occasionally, and then finally Hulk and Selene for some link climbing. Finally, run a Dagda because it's a lot harder for your opponent to play if they can't use their extra deck, as I'm sure a lot of you know from first-hand experience by now. Anyway, time to show you some of the combos you can do. So now for the combos. But first, if you've been enjoying the video so far, don't forget to give it a like and subscribe to the channel. So since regular hands with the Unchained cards are the same as they've always been, I won't be dwelling on those, and will instead be showing you mostly interactions between Baobaboon and the new cards. Now I know you won't draw it every hand, but when you don't, you just play out a normal Unchained turn. These new cards really shouldn't get in the way. Start with Prison to search Escape since you always want at least 1 trap. Then since we have Clear New World, banish Sarama for a Baobaboon, going through Ash Blossom. The Baobaboon draws an Aruha on summon, so we put back the Ash Blossom now that we have full combo. Destroy Baobaboon for an Effect Veiler, getting 2 more Baobaboons in the process. Our hand is fine, so we don't need to draw and shuffle back. Make an Arclight and then set the trap and then destroy it with Aruha. That gets a Sarama, who sets Escape back again and then destroys Aruha. Aruha triggers to get the dog, which we turn into a Soul of Rage. We now have a Negate, a Destruction effect that will summon something, and a link using your opponent's cards. This time we're going to start similarly to last hand, using Prison and Small World to fix our hand until it's perfect. Once it is, we can start destroying Baobaboon to get extra copies of itself as well as Effect Veiler. This time, however, we can use Effect Veiler and Baboon to make a Hulk, who brings back Veiler and goes into a Selene. Since there's 3 spells in the graveyard, she can revive Effect Veiler, letting us make a Herald of the Arclight. From there on, it's simple enough to do the regular Unchained combo with Aruha, except that this time we can go straight into Abomination thanks to Selene, while still having something left for our Trap's effect, leading to a 10 of destruction on top of a Negate. In this third hand, we have Baobaboon as well as Ecole de Zone. This means that when we normal summon it, it will trigger its effect, but also get destroyed, getting 2 more copies of itself and a token. When the 2 Baobaboons summon themselves, they can fix our hand enough to have full combo as well as a hand trap. We can then make a Dagda as a token and a Baobaboon, and then do the usual Aruha combo, except we trigger Dagda along the way to set a Scythe. Ending on an Abomination thanks to the Scythe, now as soon as your opponent summons a single monster, their monster will be destroyed. That in turn will trigger the Abomination to destroy a card, letting us pop the Scythe to lock them out of the extra deck for the entire turn. Finally, here's a quick one just to show you how you make a Shen Shen. All you need is an Unchained starter and then Clear New World. Summon it and then destroy it for an effect failure. Go straight into summoning a level 8, and then you can make your Syncfo Wisdom. If you wanted to run a level 2 tuner as a brick, you could always make a Baron here instead, but this really isn't the most common use of that card anyway, so it didn't really feel worth the brick. You can then make some Unchained plays, although because everything goes to the Banish Zone, there's no point looping through Sarama. In reality, this is more of a turn 3 play because you'll lose out on quite a lot, but if you're in game 2 or 3 against a deck that desperately needs their graveyard, it can be a good play to have available. So that's the deck. Will you be trying these new tech cards in your Unchained builds? Tell me in the comments below, and while you're down there, don't forget to like and subscribe. Special thanks to my tier 2 patrons Jason Moa and Violet Rain. The link to that is in the description. Thanks for watching!